Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then saith Yahshua unto him, Get thee hence, Hasatan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy Yahweh, and him only shalt thou serve. Let's get it.
Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side.
Day we hustle, but the night we
Know that they ride or die. I'm a OG boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side.
Will Yeshua HaMashiach, the man whom the world calls as Jesus Christ, have been able to resist the ultimate temptation to become a sellout if he still wasn't poor at the time? The time when your purpose is clearest is when you are still down, when you still have the so-called naivety of your vision to change the world, to make things right. This is when the value is in the purpose and not in the material, the motivation being personally moral and not to gain the money or fame at any personal cost. You see, the moral is to nurture the seed of the dream, the baby of growing purpose and morality that will inevitably grow, not always according to what you may envision at first, but ultimately it will grow according to the nature of the one who has seeded it or has given birth. When it comes to resisting the temptation to be a sellout, I offer that it's easier to turn down addictions that you've never had, to carry on psychologically and emotionally with the lack of having abundance, than to indulge in the trappings of abundance first and then deal with the threat of it being taken away, having something to lose. You see, when I was about 15 years old, I was downtown in the city one evening, later than I should have been, admittedly. But that's neither here nor there. I was bright-eyed and intelligent, smart in the night, but only to the extent that I knew I was. You see, one time this older dude, who I thought was cool, he called me over into an alleyway. He said he was gonna hook me up. He pulled out a bag, some stuff in it. Some stuff that made an immediate reflection of white in my large brown eyes. And he said something along the lines of, Yo, try this shit, young G. It was something I took as flattery and respect when he said, take a deep breath and snort it up your nose. Pause. In hindsight, a hindsight that started shortly after what I'm about to tell you happened, I have to think that the dude wanted me to become hooked or at least caught up. Since he used to see me out there hanging out, probably thinking he could make either a loyal seller or even a customer for dog years to come, since that was the thing. Anyway, unpausing, I got it wrong. Even swift of body and brain as I knew I was, I didn't know what I didn't know, and it showed when I inhaled before my nose got close and exhaled sharp and heavy as soon as the straw hit the whole pile of snow that dude had opened in front of me. There. His hands was trembling. He meant for me to sniff a little, and with a snort out, I blew all that shit in the darkness of that alley night. In my memory now, I don't know if I meant to do it subconsciously or if Yahweh was looking out for a fool. Either way, I still don't know what I was missing that night, as dude's hand shook like a racket in a cloud of white dust. There wasn't enough left for a second try, and he folded what was left of that piece of paper and left that alley without another word. You see, I still don't know what I missed to this day, and I don't care to know, which is the whole point. The best time to resist is before you buy in, when the allure is still just a real shiny object out there, attractive as it may be, and not something that you can feel in your heart and soul because you haven't allowed it in. And beyond that, the best time to resist is always sooner rather than later, aka the time is now and always is. Sometimes we think because a person has so much money that he should be able to tell the powers that be to kiss his ass, even kiss his black ass. This is a reasonable assumption, but only if the person is truly independent. If a person has wealth enough to sustain and reproduce substantially, then such a man is able to tell you, or the powers that be rather, to kiss his natural black ass. But if a man has much income, an ongoing flow of financial benefits and rewards, then to the contrary, he may not be able to afford to tell you to kiss his ass, ironically. In fact, he will likely feel he has to kiss yours. And by yours, I mean that fat, flat ass that sits over industries and nations of your world and mine, those powers that be. See your boss. Speaking of your life, if you find yourself in a position where you feel you're losing the hope and optimism that you once had, a position where you feel you are not able to speak your mind even within reason because of the dependency on your income, if you feel as if you have not been true to what you truly believe in your densest heart because of the relentless intrusions and distractions of the world, I suggest the solution is to go back to square one, at least in your mind and in your heart. Compare what you once knew to be true and right to where you are now, to what you're going along with, and where that stream is taking you, most importantly. People are in physical binds nowadays as much as in certain drastic times past. In the obvious sense, I mean, not being able to speak their minds, and worse yet, speaking the minds of others in an all-out frantic effort to go along and get along, to not stand out. You know, I don't want to say there's no hope for those kinds of people, but I can surely say there's beyond hope for you, seeing that you are watching, that you are hearing this. The hope is that while you may be in a real bind in the physical world, in the physical sense, your spirit and good consciousness, those unassailable shores to where your soulfulness and morals may retreat, cannot be rightfully taken by force, cannot be held for ransom for food or shelter. You cannot be forced to sell them to the lowest bidder. You see, when something is taken by force or under duress, as they say, you have never rightly consented to giving it away. Therefore, it still rightfully belongs to you, regardless of the fact that someone or something else has taken possession of it, claiming that valuable soul or even liberty for itself. In the great open courtroom of the end times, for example, times such as these, Any defense attorney worth his own salt can show that his client clearly consented under duress, under misinformation, or even in an inebriated state of mind. Which, being the case, makes the contract null and void, even though it bears your signature. This goes for medical consent, contractual agreements, or usage of services, or even unreasonable terms and conditions of employment. Beyond that, there is hope. As long as you don't consent to selling your seed, to selling who you are in that state of original purpose and faith, you can always grow. What you may be forced to do is a far cry from what you do willingly. Remember that. A man may be forced to lose his head, but a man should never lose his head of his own cuttings. Hence he is made a victorious martyr and not a traitor. The moral of the story: be true to yourself and your own moral compass, making sure that compass points true north, not wavering to the pools of rhetoric around you. That way you'll never go along to get along when it's in the wrong direction. And no matter what the powers that be put upon you, still do what you can to the degree that you can, knowing this, that at the end of the long day in this historical world court, after all of the trials, you may still be found not guilty. It's up to you.